Greetings, enlightened viewers, and welcome to another episode of Roll Off a Tangent. I'm Robert Gibson, alias Sendexor, and my fellow littérateurs are Nikita Zuev and XJ. This time we shall discuss the first of the Haviland Tuf stories by George R. Martin, a novella called The Plague Star. The first scene in the novella is a prologue featuring a doomed trader who is stuck on a world which is subject to periodic plagues, the origin of which he does not understand. The main part of the story begins with an extremely varied group of adventurers who wish to investigate the source of the plagues, the so-called plague star. The group of 6 adventurers comprises Celise Waan, a scholar of anthropology; Jefri Lion, a scholar and retired soldier; Anittas, a cybertech; Kaj Nevis, the leader of the expedition; Rica Dawnstar, a mercenary bodyguard; and Haviland Tuf, a trader whose vessel they hire. Approaching the plague star, they find that it's an enormous ancient spaceship, nearly 20 miles long. It's a seed ship of the old Federal Empire's Ecological Engineering Corps. As that name suggests, its original purpose was connected with science and engineering, specifically ecology, rather than war, but it is still well able to defend itself automatically, despite having been deserted for long ages. The plagues it has unleashed are related to an ancient conflict, and the other powers and the knowledge it possesses make it a treasure trove for the adventurers. With many shifts of scene and viewpoint, most of the story is centered around the efforts of the 2 most ruthless adventurers, Kaj Nevis and Rica Dawnstar, to grab what they can at the expense of the others, using the terrifying resources available on board the giant seed ship, including, for example, the capacity to create a tyrannosaur. All but one of the original 6 protagonists end up dead, and in the end, the only one left alive is the honest and pacific Haviland Tuf, who has unexpectedly defeated his brutal and treacherous rivals and is left in control of the ancient colossus. So that's the story in very bare outline. Perhaps, Nikki, you might like to comment?
Of course. So, by the way, I think the summary was actually pretty precise, well concise, and got into the nitty gritty of the story without actually having to go through every single action
Yeah, that
and
would have taken ages. Yeah.
yeah, that would have taken ages because there is a lot written on these 40 odd pages and a lot of things to consider, a lot of fun to be had, a lot of things to truly dive into if you really wanted to. I think you could really pick up any part of the story and analyze it and have a good discussion about it. Before we do that, though, I do want to remind our viewers and maybe also the panel of the podcast that this is the third story that we've done by George R. R. Martin, and it is also the third story in the Thousand Worlds universe. So this takes place in the same universe as The Hero. This takes place in the same universe as This Tower of Ashes. And when we will look into other short stories, perhaps they will also take place in this area. And here you get to see the place evolve quite significantly. There are a great many interesting points of view set up, both from the perspectives of the type of protagonists we have within the tale, as well as all of these interesting factions, right? There's a talk of a university that wishes to explore space. There's the engineering corps with their golden theta as their symbol. You know, there are these various aliens, the The aliens from the Double War are mentioned again. The Harangans or the Hanar. I can't remember which ones are mentioned, to be honest, at this very point in time. But there are a lot of connections to the previous stories, even though they are not visible in the perspective of, oh, this is the same character or this is continuing the tale. It's just in the same universe, which is quite fascinating. Onto the story itself, I think the Blake Star is the first tale that we've read by George R. R. Martin where he's having fun with it. He's having fun writing it. The first piece was his proclamation against the Vietnam War. The second piece was him writing about a situation in which he felt betrayed by a friend and a fellow writer, a fellow author. And this third one, it's an adventure, right? I mean, it starts pretty darkly, right? With the finding of this recording that's pretty terrifying. But that's just a mood piece more than it is the actual theme of the entire story. What it is, really, as Robert described, is a king of the hill type of an event where these 6 individuals, although they came together, begin fighting for control of this ship, a ship that has the powers to create life. Right. So basically what they're fighting for is becoming God as far as nature is concerned. They get to create plagues just the same as Moses in the Bible did, well, in the Old Testament, right? They get to create life from scratch. There is thousands of possibilities that you can do with the ship. And Tough Voyaging, which is what this first story, The Plague Star, is a part of, continues on with Tough afterwards. So this is not the last time we see Haviland Tuf. And we get to actually explore more as to what he will do with this power. But for now, we get this awesome romp with a lot of colorful characters who fight against one another. And in the end, it seems that the cold yet fair calculations of Tough is what wins out, right? And it's really interesting to see what it seems to be that our author values in people, right? Because you can clearly understand that he sees Lion and he projects him as this really honorable dude, but placing honor in the wrong place, right? So he's saying, yeah, you can be honorable, but if you're serving the wrong master, your honor doesn't really matter, right? And you've got Rica Dawnstar, who is this super anarcho-capitalist who just wants the best out of the situation for her no matter what. And she's willing to negotiate with everybody at any point, right? And that doesn't help her either. Because she is just no longer trusted by anybody by the end, Tough included, right? So what wins out? In the end, Tough wins. And what does he represent? Well, I don't know if there's any ideology that he sort of at this very moment, because I haven't read the rest of Tough Voyaging. Maybe it will become a little bit more clearer for me. But to me, it just seems like, in a way, Tough is George R. R. Martin, right? He seems to be this calm, calculated individual who sets out pieces on the board and slowly takes them off one by one, either by having 2 pieces collide with one another or doing it himself in the end. But it seems to me like the hand of the author is, you can really see it. You can really see his perspective on life in this tale, which is fun, right? It's fun to see what kind of things he sees in our universe and what kind of message he could show us through his writing. But also it has T-Rexes and it's got Hellcats and it's got giant bats and suits of power armor and explosive plasma cannons, right? So not only is it an interesting piece of like, so what is currently going on within this King of the Hill situation, it's also fun because the setting is really exciting. So yeah, I had a lot of fun reading this. What about you, actually?
Um, I found it a very interesting story, and the first thing that leapt to my mind when I was about 2/3 of the way through is how much like a movie this short story is written in, the way it's written in. Uh, you could see it is like Event Horizon. It is like Lost in Space. It is like um in a way it's even a little bit like Ocean's 11. You have a bunch of guys, a bunch of people coming in the beginning. They are they are all rogues and they all have their different expertise, and then they band together for the moment to hit a mark. And then they go into the ship, and it becomes a little bit like Event Horizon, where they explore this mysterious derelict. Nobody quite knows what caused it to become the way it is, and as they slowly uncover the horrors of the situation behind it, uh, it, it I think for a very long time George R. Martin wrote screenplays for the industry. So I wonder if this is before or after, but either way, it's really something you could see in the movie, even the way it's paced. I think the characters are very colorful, except maybe Tuft himself. And the reason for that is because I feel like reading through it, the we are all like, so one of the things that separates books from movies is you can be taken into the perspective of the mind of the character. And in this particular case, uh to me anyway, it is very striking that we are never really in Tuft's mind. I mean, the way he's set up is again, it's like a movie. We know he is more than what he seems because he wins at the every single game that I don't remember what it's called. That game of starships that he played with Jefri Lion and Rica Dawnstar. He won every single one of them, and that's how we know he is more than what his demeanor implies. That he has more depth to him than just a chubby ship owner with fondness for cats. And of course, the way and as the story goes on, the way he trapped Celise Waan into revealing what exactly it is that they're going for, amongst all the other stuff. But the thing is, none of it would have worked if we could actually go into Tuft's mind. And so Tuft stood out as deliberately obscured, and thus he's not quite as colorful. He doesn't come off as quite as colorful as the other characters. The creatures themselves are very interesting. I really like the roller ram. It's like what a fantastic creature that is. And again, I could totally see them in CGI in the movie. Right? It's like it really is. It's like even the backdrop of like exploring this humongous ship. We're talking about 20 miles of steel. It's like it is almost the size of my country, for goodness sake.
Crazy, huh? And
Yeah.
also, it would be pretty easy to do a lot of CGI that it's a space station, right?
Oh.
A lot of steel, a lot of beams.
That
right?
the whole thing would have been like almost completely CGI, man. It's like, yeah, it really is like when I read it, it was like the thing that struck me the most is like this is a screenplay. This is a screenplay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I quite enjoyed it. Just like Nikki, it's a colorful romp. Unfortunately for me, I had a lot of work this past week talking about movies. So I wasn't able to just sit back and relax with the story as I would have liked to. And I probably missed out quite a bit because of that. But for what it's worth, it was entertaining.
Could you share with the people what you've been working on as a CGI, or does your contract not allow you?
I can tell you what show I was working on. It's the Blue Beetle.
It's the Blue Beetle by DC Comics.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm definitely giving it a watch.
Thank you. It's
There you go, free advertising for you.
yeah, it's how do I say this? I thoroughly enjoyed my time on this show, but the problem for me is that none of the stories that made it enjoyable for me is anything I could share.
That is very unfortunate. But maybe at some point your NDA will run out, and maybe you could tell us.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be people who would be interested in how the process works in general.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the
back to the Plague Star. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Robert Gibson. What do you think?
yes.
What's your opinion?
Right. I'm going to confess that I do have a bit of a problem most of the time with stories set on huge ships. There's nothing wrong with the stories, it's just the limitation of my outlook in that I tend to long for real planetary landscapes. Now, of course, that's missing the point that the inside of the ship, especially a technologically advanced ship full of various types of technological wizardry, is in fact a sort of landscape, and it's a kind of dynamic landscape with all sorts of quasi-magical phenomena that can be unleashed unpredictably, as in this story. So yeah, I would say that I would have enjoyed the story thoroughly if it weren't for the limitations of my shall we say, the way I read things and so on. I'm parading my generosity here because virtue signaling is such a big thing nowadays. I'm showing everybody how broad-minded I am in admiring and respecting a story which I didn't actually terrifically enjoy, but it is really good stuff, and I'm sure it would repay further study.
Well, I think this is
yeah.
a unique moment in the time of this podcast to find out what you didn't like and why.
Well, it's all very well, but I find these questions very difficult to answer. You see, if I say, "Oh, I didn't like it because it was rather bleak," then I think I think of stories which are even bleaker and which I did like. So it's a huge problem. And besides, it's not so bleak that it didn't have a very good ending, where Tuf, who's the only character who's really worth anything, is the one who survives. I suppose the anthropologist lady wasn't too bad as well. But
You like the
yeah,
whining woman, like
yeah.
right? I don't remember her name, unfortunately. That's every time she came on screen, I was like, oh,
Celise
here we go again.
Waan, I believe that's the name. Waan.
Even
Even the name sounds whiny. I gotta admit.
Right. Yeah,
But
Robert,
it's
what's
very
the
difficult for me to
yeah?
say when I don't like us, when I don't like this kind of story. I still think it's very good. So it's obviously my fault that I didn't like it.
Well, I
Or
mean, we're
when I say
not
I didn't
trying to
like it, I didn't
analyze.
enjoy it. That's the better way of saying it.
Yeah, yeah, but we're not trying to analyze whether or not your criticisms will make sense. What we're trying to see is what they were, right? And how
Hmm.
did it make you feel, right? Because of
Perhaps
course
there's
I
not.
understand.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I'll do it partly by comparing it with another very high tech story, Arthur C. Clarke's novel, The City and the Stars.
Yeah.
Now, that is set 1,000 million years in the future, and it's very, very, very high tech. But despite that, I feel a kind of kinship with the characters in it and with the general scenario. I suppose because I think that although it's tremendously far in the future, and incidentally, it's a bit unrealistic to suppose that the sun would still be on its, wouldn't have fried the earth to a crisp by that time. But never mind about that. Although it's so far in the future, it does have a sort of long descent from us to there. That's how I can describe it. The sort of emotions involved and the ideals involved. Whereas um, the the plague star, although they are human beings, um, I feel they've been cut off culturally from utterly cut off from us. There's no sort of cultural continuity at all. So I don't feel I feel like it's like reading about nomads. And even then, nomads one could feel more cultural link with them. I'm struggling here to try and analyze why I don't feel very comfortable with the story. I'm not doing a very good job of it.
Well, I mean, it is hard to self-analyze, especially on the spot.
Hmm.
But perhaps maybe we could try and help you out. Maybe I'll
Hmm.
start naming things that I liked, and you could be like, no, no, I didn't like that, and then we could like explore that a bit.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Actually, you can join on the fun, obviously, if you've got some things that you like. Um, so first of all, I really liked the opening. It was bleak, but its bleakness left this really sorrowful impression on me that sort of created this tension, right? It created
Hmm.
tension that I was like, okay, what is this plague star thing? Why is it destroying everything? Who is this? Who is this for? Who was it made by, and stuff like that. So it made me ask a lot of questions, and I
Hmm.
think it was due to how moody that whole opening was.
Yeah.
Would you agree on that?
Yeah, I would. I would. It reminds me of a sort of Paul Anderson type um, piece of writing. That particular one, that particular prologue. Yeah. Yeah, I
I
agree.
also quite enjoyed the next. I wouldn't even call them chapters. I would just call it next scene. I agree with X-Ray. This is like a really long TV special movie kind of a thing going on here. Um, and of course, the scene takes in the best place, and because the prologue doesn't count as the story actually beginning, the story also starts in a tavern. I just want those people who rejected your short story actually just to hear that one more time, and have a fantastic story starting in a tavern. um and the collection of all these characters, how they interacted with one another, and then Tuf's meaningful entrance. I really enjoyed that scene. I think it
Mm.
really built on every character, so we got to know them, and also gave us this grand mystery, another grand mystery. Who is Tough?
Mm.
Was
Yeah,
that not how you experienced that scene? It was.
yeah. I'll go
Yeah.
along with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Now I think so. This is the first part that things kind of grinded down a little bit for me, and that was them getting towards the plague star. this I wouldn't cut out any of the scenes. Strangely enough, I understand their meaning, right? I understand the meaning of having people complaining, having the situation with Rica Dawnstar where she's losing to Tuf, and then she has a conversation with him where she's like, "You should come to my side," and then
Mm.
having the the dinner scene where we get the reveal of what the plague star is, right? That was really fun. I guess well, maybe I lied a little bit. Maybe we could have no scene where Tuf is playing the game with Rika and that whole thing, and then just have her mention that they keep playing this game and he keeps winning, right? So that doesn't really take anything away, more or less. But I mean, I'd hesitate to mop around with any parts of the story because I did really enjoy it, but it was a slowdown in the pace.
Mm.
What about you, Robert? Do you think there was a slowdown?
Well, not really. I don't feel that any part of the story was particularly slow. It's more that um, this thing I've got about not really enjoying stories set on huge ships. I know not all of it was set on the ship, but most
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it was. It's partly, I suppose, a sense of being closed in, and I'm a bit of a claustrophobe, perhaps in reading about closed in environments. I'm not sure.
Well,
It could be. Could
your
be.
imagination is very vivid, so
Mm,
probably you could imagine being in such an
yeah.
enclosed space. So hold on. What
Mm.
if, all right, let's say some space agency comes over to you and they say like, okay, everything that you've written and all your fiction actually has turned out to be true. We want you to come aboard as the advisor on the space station tomorrow. Would you say no?
No, I wouldn't say no. No, but then uh, the space station is still part of our culture, isn't it? Part of contemporary. Well, part of it. It's not kind of way out, is it? At least I don't suppose it is. Um,
You're saying that because it's a near orbit, that you feel comfortable on it, or what do you mean?
It sounds to me a lot like Rob just can't relate to the characters, and
Well, why did he mention claustrophobia then?
why did I mention what? Sorry.
Claustrophobia.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples that might. I've, for example, that last Conan story we did, where a lot of it
Yeah.
was down in the underground part. I didn't enjoy that part so much. This is the first time I'm thinking on these lines, actually, trying to discover how my own mind works, which is perhaps not very interesting for the viewers, except that there may be other viewers who have the same kind of mindset and might be interested to know, for their sakes, what kind of
I don't know
story.
about the viewers, but for at least me, I can't speak for actually. This is invaluable information because it will make
Mm,
me understand the criticisms or the ideas that you put forward better, so I can better
mm,
interact with them. So
yeah,
this
there's another
exploration
book.
would be beneficial.
Well, a lot of my thinking's, a lot of the time I make comparisons. I don't know if you've read or tried to read Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks, but
Never
that,
read.
well, I'm tempted to say you haven't missed much, but it's a it's a very highly thought of book, and it starts off really well, but so much of it is, it seems to me, extremely boring. Um, and there's a plague star is never boring, by the way, but it's very technological and very divorced from our reality. And yet, I say that, but of course, uh, a little voice inside me says, "Now, come on, you've read loads of stories that are extremely divorced from reality, and you like them. So what's going on here? And I really don't know. I
Perhaps the alien way in which this society functions, this particular way that George R. R.
yeah,
Martin is creating this universe, it's creating this dissonance where you can't believe that humans would be this way. But maybe, or that
possibly.
it doesn't feel
Yeah,
that real to you.
yeah, or that there isn't much hope. I like there to be some hope, except of course when we're reading Clark Ashton Smith stories where there's often no hope at all, but I still like them. So
I mean, but Clark Aston Smith can get away with anything, I think.
well, yeah,
I think
yeah,
even if I
yeah.
found like a story in which it's literally all about, I don't know, washing clothing, I think you would be like, well, you just simply don't understand it, Nikita. Okay, you don't really understand how to enjoy the story when you read it. So Clark Aston Smith can't do any wrong. That's fair enough.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
is
that's
there
what
is there a story where you would say, Mr. Smith, you know, you strayed away from
mm.
the path?
Yeah, well, actually, he did write one story that's so depressing that even I um, don't really read it that much. It's called The Last Hieroglyph, which is actually a kind of like futility to the nth power. It's totally futile. Um, so,
Wow.
so I don't give him carte blanche. Even Clark Ashton Smith, I don't give him totally carte blanche. I suppose that the Plague Star is uh, it's got one sympathetic character, Tough himself, but is that enough in a completely what I think of as an unsympathetic universe? I know we don't
I
see the
mean,
whole
what is so unsympathetic about Anittas, for example? The tech, the cyber guy. He's not
No,
really an
that's true. I'd forgotten about him. Yeah, I feel sorry for him. Although at least he got plugged in the end, didn't he? So maybe it
yeah,
kind of
he got and
yeah,
he made the comeuppance come to his killer, right, as well.
yeah, that's true.
Um,
Yeah,
Lion himself, um his loyalties may be misplaced, but he is a loyal soul and a pretty honorable one. So I don't
hmm,
see him as that terrible. I mean, there's really three antagonists and three protagonists in this.
yeah, yeah, yep, yep. I'm definitely getting the worst of this discussion. I really feel like a total failure in trying to explain why I didn't enjoy the story.
No, I mean, welcome to my club, Robert. Every time I speak to either of you about anything, that's kind of how I feel. Uh, but I'm a bit more fervent in defending my points, even if I feel like I'm losing. Uh,
Mm,
the to me, right, the story is almost perfect.
mm,
And the thing that it's missing for me most, and this is gonna sound pretty strange, but I think there was too little of it. I think it could have really done with either expanding on the characters even more or expanding on the action even more, with all of them six still being alive and having all these different troubles in the ship, right? Let's say
mm,
they all got teleported into different rooms, and each one of them, although they are pretty terrible people, some of them, have to come up with ways to survive it, right? And so the bad guys, Rica Dawnstar, Mr. Man in the mech suit, I forget his name, and Anittas, they get teleported into one area altogether, so they get an easier time, at least at first, and then they start bickering, right, or something like that, and then it becomes harder for them to cooperate. And then the more like the other three, they kind of get split into one and two. So Tough is on his
mm,
own, and um, the people from the university are on their own and have their whole
mm.
bickering match. So
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
That kind of relates to what XJ was saying about the fact that we don't see into Tufts' consciousness all that much, and he gave us some example, well, some reasons why, for plot reasons why that had to be. But still, if somehow the author could have managed it, it might have made the story better for me. And also, if he'd made it a bit more reflective in general, if the characters had been a bit more reflective, at least those who were capable of it, that might have, I don't know, that might have worked for me. So making it longer might make it easier to read in that sense.
I just kind of want to build on that point where we don't see into Tuf's mind. One thing that I did not like about the story is how it relies a lot on. I don't know if I would be accurate in saying it in portraying it in this manner, but I feel like a lot of the story relies on Deus ex machinas. Like the solutions are popped out from nowhere. The mind control to the mind control of the biological weapons on the ship, for instance, that came out of nowhere. There was a setup for the cannon that destroyed the T-Rex at the very end, but there was a setup in the sense that the cannon was set up by someone else, and it was never used. So the opportunity was open for Tuf to use it, but we never got a hint that Tuf was even close to thinking about using it until the very end. So I feel like this obscuring of this distance between the reader and any sort of ingress towards Tuf's inner thoughts are a way to it's like it's like to cheat in a sense this solutions to the problems presented by the story. And I mean, there are a lot of Deus ex machinas I feel in present throughout the story. Like, where did this Unqueen battlesuit come from? And I feel
does
like
that really matter? Like, Tuf is a merchant, so he bought it somewhere. Like, I don't know if that one, like the other two, I'm like, okay, but that one.
I feel like they pop out of nowhere, to be honest, and they're
I have a theory about that battlesuit actually, but carry on.
Yeah, and I feel like that battlesuit also does something to whoever wears it, because you could see a total change. And again, it was not really explored.
I like it that way, to be honest. I like the idea that you could look at it and be like,
that's fair enough. But I think it feels like it's a deliberate setup. Tuf deliberately set Kaj Nevis up, but again, because we don't see into his mind, we don't really know for sure, and
that's fun.
It just stands out as cheating, to be honest, because we get to see into the minds of all the other characters, just not Tuf. And if we get to see Tuf's mind, like if we can go in and see every resolution of the story just falls apart. It just comes as no, it would not work the way it did. So I feel like this could be, I mean, it's so different. It feels so different from when George R.R. Martin wrote Tyrion Lannister as a comparison. So this could be a much earlier evolution of his way of writing clever characters. But yeah, definitely did feel like deliberate obscuration of certain things, which if revealed would not work quite as well in the story. Yeah.
This
Would you
was
say-
published in 1986, which is like about 10 years before.
Yeah,
the
so
first.
totally right, because Tyrion Lannister was so much better written than
What were you gonna say, Robert?
I was just going to just jump off slightly at a tangent here and say, do you think maybe, as far as the mechanics of reading this story is concerned, there's just a heck of a lot to remember, a lot of details to remember, and if you're not very good at remembering that level of detail, you're likely to get confused. Because I sometimes was confused, and I don't want to say where I was confused because I'm too confused to pinpoint it. But yeah, it does make demands on the reader.
I absolutely agree with that too, because I was very, very confused from the prologue and the proper start of the story until towards when they actually boarded the during the, I think the dinner scene was when it became evident that the Janil and her friend are not humans. I don't believe so. Like the two characters right in the beginning.
In the prologue, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get that impression.
I don't think that they are humans, because supposedly there was some mention of two species, the
The bad people and the other creatures, but that has nothing to do with the
no.
group
I
explorers.
think the two explorers are different species from humans. I got that sense anyway. But yeah, like this is an example of the confusion I felt, and
Okay.
yeah, and I think that the Hrunga and the Hrang are two separate peoples, races,
Yes, they are.
species, and I keep mixing them up. Yeah.
Yeah, because they sound the same.
Yeah, well, not just that too, but also because I don't think any physical description of them was given. Although, because the story takes place in a line of stories, it's not necessary to. Yeah. But yeah, there are a lot of details.
There's a lot of demand on the reader. It's the same as all of the A Song of Ice and Fire. Only, A Song of Ice and Fire is that times 100, right? You have so many characters, so many houses, so many factions that combine these houses. Other countries,
Yeah. You have an
it's
appendix,
crazy.
don't you, in
Yeah.
the Song of Ice and Fire? So
Yeah, exactly. You've got an appendix with all of the people in the house so that you can remember who it is. So yeah,
I wonder
so
if
unless
I wonder if the appendix is more for him than for the reader.
that may be, but unless you fall in love with those stories, you will never remember every character. I think if you don't like reading it, you can't read it. Actually, that's the way I see A Song of Ice and Fire. If you can't enjoy it, then you won't go through the trouble, right? Because you'll just be, as AJ pointed out here, confused.
I feel like it's a slightly different thing for me, because I did when I read A Song of Ice and Fire, I did like it, the first 3 or 4 books anyway, and I had no problems following the threads. It's not that there are so many threads, it's that the threads in the Plague Star are disconnected from each other.
Right. They're talking
Yeah.
about things that don't actually happen in the story.
Yeah.
I understand that, but that comes to the craftsmanship of the author. is what I'm talking about. I'm
Well,
just getting there.
fair enough.
Yeah.
I do feel like there is some excuse for something like the Plague Star, which is one snapshot taken in the midst of a much larger universe of works. Much larger body of works. It would be like taking a chapter from a Song of Ice and Fire and then just reading it on its own. Yeah.
Well, I like that actually. I like that kind of thing. I like series of interconnected stories that, I know you didn't get on brilliantly well with Novice by James H. Schmitz, but it is part of exactly this kind of structure of tales where there's, several volumes of novellas all set in the same background, and they to some extent refer to each other, but not too much. Not too much.
Also, like, it would be as if I think a much better way to describe my feeling, going back to my point earlier, would be like if I suddenly picked up a book in the Horus Heresy that's like right smack in the middle, and I read it, I would have like, yeah, it'd be something like that.
What was that noise? What were you trying to say?
Completely confused.
I see. That sounded like you were talking to a little baby, like.
Well, I am the baby. I am the baby in that sense, right? Not quite getting this.
Jesus Christ! I don't know what kind of babies you've seen. They seem horrifying. Okay, so back to the Star of the Plague Star. I've got a couple of things I want to say, and theories and ideas. So first of all, the thing that actually stole right out of my mouth, the suit, right, Nevis. That whole thing, I'm sure that he's being somehow influenced because he keeps saying like, "I love this suit. I love this suit," and I'm like, okay, well, all right. Saying it once was like, "Oh, I'm a menacing, badass villain. I love this suit," right? Like, punch you in the face with it. But then when you say it like 3 times, okay, the author's trying to do something, and I think it's actually quite clever because if you're paying any attention, you're gonna figure that out, and you don't need to see inside the character's mind. You know, your complaint was like, "Oh, I can't see inside his mind," but you figured that out.
No,
anyway,
it's not that.
I was seeing in him.
It's not so much that. Actually, you know what? I'll let you finish your point.
Well, thank you. Secondly, I think Anittas is the most interesting character out of the entire bunch. I would love to know more about him. I'd love to know what kind of faction he comes from. Why he wanted to have the Plague Star. Because to me, it seems like he, if I was to theory craft, he is part of those engineer dudes. He's like the last remnant survivor thing from that institution, and he was coming back to reclaim the ship for them or something. Because he's like this half cyborg who knows how to connect to the ship and such, right? And he even talks to Nevis, and he says like, if you would just behave, you would have had everything that you asked for, but you had to betray me. You had to you had to kill me, so now I'm gonna kill everyone, excluding you, right? That was a pretty fun scene. And the last theory that I have is that this cornucopia of good, what was it called? The cornucopia of excellent goods at low prices. There we go. I wrote it down. I think it being damaged was a setup. I think Anittas and Nevis, at the point of when they were coming in towards the trajectory, knew that the systems were upgraded and they would be able to actually shoot the ship. They were activated, not upgraded, they're activated. And the only way that works is if Anittas has a good understanding of what the Plague Star is, even without the 2 university people. So for this theory to work, he would have to be part of the Theta people, right? Part of the engineering corps. So I think when a story, makes you start thinking about like, oh, what did this part really mean? Oh, what did the author try to show here? Ah, is this showcasing this thread and so on and so forth? I think the story has succeeded, at
Yes.
least for me. I
Yeah.
like that kind of feel that you would sit down and you'd have to really think about this whole meal that you have just consumed.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it. It's the most successful authors get the readers to enlist the readers to do some of their work for them. Um, it's as you say, it's a sign that it's succeeded.
Hmm.
Well, just to build on that point, I actually don't think it was a setup by Kaj Nevis or Anittas, the ship getting shot down. It was more likely to be a setup by Tuft, and that's going back to my point about not getting into Tuft's mind. It's not a complaint that I have. It's just that he really stands out in not in being very obscured from the reader,
But
to the point where it's very deliberate, and a lot of the plot hooks, the plot points, won't work as well as it did if we could glimpse into Tuft's mind like the rest of the characters. So it's not so much, I'm not so much against going into the mind of a character, because I really like environmental storytelling where the clues of what happened is in the background and the reader has to piece things together. But it's just that the way this story, the way it works, hinges almost completely on the masterminding of Tough, and none of it would lose a lot of its power if we could see into his mind like the rest. Now, if George R.R. Martin had not taken us into the minds of all the other characters, then that's a different story. Then that's very consistent. But because aside from when Tough was trying to clone Mushroom, we never really got to feel his inner thoughts. So
mm,
so that's why it came across as a cheat to me. It's not that I have a complaint that we don't get in his mind or whatever. It's just that it stood out in a way that is very deliberate.
sure.
I've got one thing to say in connection with the approach to the siege ship, which is that when Tuff's ship approaches incautiously and gets blattered by the siege ship, I thought that was the most unbelievable thing in the story for me, because I thought all these people inhabiting this future scenario would know that you don't just approach a strange ship and expect it not to react. I could be wrong, but that's how I thought when I
I
was reading
mean,
it.
yes, there is that. And also, it's like, how convenient is it that Mushroom has had, or is it the other cat that got Jeffrey Lion's codes, and they found it
Well,
just after.
I have a theory on that too, but
I mean,
um, yeah.
he also made more than one mention about how cats have psychic connection, right? So
Yes,
I mean,
correct.
it's like there's a lot of, that's why I feel like the story has a lot of Deo ex machinas in it. It's like, I get, for some people maybe it works, but for me it doesn't, I guess.
I think it really depends on what kind of a mindset you're coming into the story with, right? If you're coming in with the story with the mindset of like, okay, I need I can't make leaps of logic for the story to be surprising, right? Then yes, I completely agree with you, actually. But I think if you're willing to have the understanding that in order to surprise the modern reader, you kind of have to obscure things. Then you're like, okay, fair enough. I understand why you did it the way you did it. Like I was entertained and surprised, and then I could I read the story again. I was like, aha, I kind of see this kind of happening. Like for example, with Rica Dawnstar discovering the whole psionic ability with with the creatures on the ship. She spends a long time going through the records of everything, trying to learn how the ship works. And in the end of her chapter, it just says, and then she found out, right? Basically, right? And so, not to tell you exactly what she found out, so we can have this thing between her and Tuf, and where she can be like, I'm on a T-Rex, bitch. What are you gonna do, right? Like for that to work, you can't find out about this thing alongside her at the same time.
I mean, like I said before, the short story, this short story has a very screenplay-like aspect to it, and it probably works a lot better in a movie than it does on paper. I guess that method. I could totally see it happening in a movie, but I guess in a short story, it just doesn't. I wouldn't mind so much if it's consistent. It's just that it's inconsistent, I guess. It's the way I'm trying to
Fair enough.
say.
I think that the way Nikki reads this story is the right one, and the way I read it is the wrong one. So I just want to say that this bears out things I've been saying in previous podcasts about there is a right way and a wrong way to read stories. The right way is whatever way it takes to read it in order to enjoy it.
Or perhaps, just perhaps, this might be a crazy theory out there. There are different stories that some people like and some people dislike.
Well, yeah, but does that is that different from what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you're saying that there is a way in this universe that you would have read this and you would have enjoyed it. But you as
Well,
a person,
I'm not
as an
saying that.
individual,
I'm not
can't.
saying that you
So,
can choose. I'm not saying the individual can choose. It's like people can digest some foods and others can't, but that still means there's a right way and a wrong way to
right, but
digest
okay,
food.
but if in the end it's the same as like, well, some people enjoy stories and some people don't enjoy stories, if in the end that's exactly the same what you're saying, why are you saying it a different way then?
Because
What is the added
yeah,
value?
because I'm saying it the way I'm saying it because I'm trying to avoid the idea that it's all just
I
a
can't
matter.
believe we're back here, by the way. Sorry, go on, Robert.
It's I'm trying to avoid the idea that it's all just a matter of taste and that um, it's like saying I don't know, some people prefer blue and other people prefer red as far as favorite colors are concerned. I don't think it's like that. I think that there that if one had the power to read a story in the right way, one would enjoy just about every story. So it's a matter of making it's really I'm saying what I'm saying out of respect for stories, because I'm saying that there are some stories which are no just as good, even if just supposing only say 1% of the world population was capable of enjoying a story, but that wasn't the fault of the story. It was just that most of the world's population have not attained the the mindset necessary to enjoy that story. You see what I mean? I'm trying
Well,
to
yes,
make
I
it.
mean, I could become an absolute drunkard and destroy my psyche and then enjoy the snows of Kilimanjaro, or get myself to Ernest Hemingway's point of
Mm,
mind. That is correct, but I don't necessarily think there's any value in doing so. I also
yeah.
don't think that you can't boil it down to a technique of reading. It is about so many things. It's about the
Mm,
environmental influences, the type of culture you were brought up in, you know, the amount of acumen that you have, the amount of reading that you've done in the past. There are so many things that are influencing this that I
Well, I
don't
quite
think it's
agree.
just
I quite agree. I'm not sort of saying that people who can't enjoy a story should be wrapped on the knuckles about it. I'm
I
saying
mean,
that,
I do, but you know, I think that's another place where we differ.
yeah.
Like
Well,
I think, you know, exit should be publicly shamed. No, I'm kidding. Uh,
but
in fact, actually, I think it's way more fun when one of us disagrees on the quality or not
hmm,
quality, so to speak, but on the merit of the story, right?
yeah.
So if everyone could read the right way, as you put it, I think it'd be a pretty boring world.
Well, it wouldn't be boring. It would the kind of discussions would shift towards new areas. We would be arguing about how the effects are achieved rather than are they achieved. So that would be limitless. You could say, "Oh yeah, this story is
That's
great."
that's
I think,
fair. Although I note that one story that we did that we all liked, we were quite laid back about. Which was it? It's not the Green Hills of Earth, the one before that.
well, there was Guile of Sphere, but we didn't all like that one, did we?
Well,
But wasn't it the Green Hills of Earth that we all enjoyed?
Yeah, we all enjoyed the Green Hills of Earth. We all gave it, well,
all
you
right,
and I
yeah,
gave it 10 out of 10, I think.
Yeah,
yeah,
10 out of 10.
yeah.
Okay, so question time. You know, speaking of preferences, if you had to choose uh, out of the six of these people, and you can't choose Taf, obviously, as your partner on the ship, which one would you choose? Now you can't
And
take
man,
Taf, right?
I did go solo.
You'd go so okay. So actually, would choose to die. Robert, what about you?
I'd choose the cyborg guy probably.
Anittas. Yeah, that is the smart choice for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, get
I mean,
Anittas on your side.
none of them are particularly savory characters. Like, I mean, Anita's come across as more reliable, but only because he doesn't really get a lot of screen time, and we don't really know much about
Hmm.
him.
I mean,
Hmm.
I I would I would choose. I mean, I would start complaining about everything, and then automatically Jefri Lion would appear like in front of me to protect me, because you know that's the type of people he's loyal to. So, and then he would you know he would get me through the thing. That's for sure. Because I
Hmm.
would be a good leader, right? I'll tell him the right things to do.
Hmm.
So Jeffrey Lion would be your human
Yeah,
shield,
I
so
mean,
to
what could
speak.
as a partner, what could you want more than loyalty and companionship?
Yeah. True.
Competence, perhaps.
Well, he's pretty competent. He sets up a, you know, he kills Nevis, right? So that's
I
good enough
think
for me.
I think the archetype. So this is interesting. I think the archetype of Jeffrey Lion is one of those guys that is a has been. He is somebody who comes across as one of those gun nut types that really loves guns but have never actually been in action, and then if you actually throw him in action he would flounder just like he did.
Well, I didn't get an impression at all. He is actually described as a veteran.
A veteran could mean many things. He could actually have been a veteran as a clerk in the front lines.
I I I just disagree with your characterization of this character. I guess I don't think he's
Maybe
a has-been.
he came across as a guy who lives more in his mind uh about how much he can achieve than he actually did achieve, and I think the story itself described him as such a couple of times.
Okay.
Winning
And then the
victories,
second question.
winning
Okay.
victories in his dreams, I think is almost
Yeah,
a
yeah.
paraphrase.
They talk about everyone sleeping and that he is reliving the battles and winning them or something like that. Yeah. So second question: if you got your hands on the Plague Star, right? And we're talking about. I mean, I know that's highly unlikely in the first place, but even more unlikely, you understand how it works. What would you do with it?
You'd have to get help, I suppose. I don't suppose one person can pilot a ship like that.
It can. You can. That's what the tough voyaging is all about. He's alone on the ship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Golly.
It's
The
I'm gonna read a couple of more short stories in the tough voyaging.
I
and I'll
think
let
I
you guys
think
know if it's
I
worth it.
think I think the description is that the AI in the ship was structured in such a way that it could carry out the maintenance of the ship all by itself and just does everything by itself. It just needs somebody to direct it.
But
So-
regardless, what would you
It's
do?
like
with it?
Rama in Rendezvous with Rama.
Yeah.
Correct.
Same sort of thing.
I'd create a paradise planet. And I'd park the fucking Plague Star in the orbit. Just go sit down on the beach. Every time I get bored, I'd be like, all right, make a
Sort of-
T-Rex and a giant squid and make them fight.
Sort of like the dream worlds on in Warhammer, maybe.
Sure, yeah. Pleasure
Pleasure
planets.
pleasure planets.
That's right. I'd create a pleasure planet of my own. You know, be like, make me a watermelon cocktail with cognac. You know, restructure my DNA so that I have a six pack. All right, thanks. Anyway, take a sip. That'd be my plan.
I suppose it would be the ideal exploratory vessel as well. It could.
Yeah, you could explore the stars with it too. Yeah, but I mean, who wants to do that when you can have pina coladas?
Well, you can have what?
Pina coladas. It's a cocktail. So
Oh, right.
it
Well, you might.
it's a reference to a song that I can't sing probably on the podcast or will be taken down. But it's something about getting hot in the rain. All right. So Plague Star gets a solid 8.5 out of 10 from me. I'm not gonna provide a sequel for you because there are actually sequels to the story, so it can be kind of useless. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked all the characters. It's actually sad that they all but Tough died because they were all kind of interesting. I'd love to see more of them, but now that they're dead, I don't. You know, this is the thing. I don't like reading prequels about characters who I know are dead already. Maybe that's just me, but it just kind of seems pointless unless there's like a secret in their backstory that will, when revealed, give you a new perspective on the characters that are currently still alive, right? That's the only time that I'd be like, okay, maybe the prequel makes sense, but yeah.
Well,
Whatever.
if it's a prequel that can be read in its own right, then that's fair enough.
That's true. That's true. I guess I just feel a little cheated because I know what will happen to this guy in the end, or this girl, or this person. Anyway, what is your score, Robert?
I'd go the same. I'd say 8 out of 10 because it's a good story. Yeah, it's a good story.
Awesome. Cool. Actually,
7.25.
okay.
That's quite high for
Well,
you.
why the 2.5? Yeah.
Huh? Because I'm thinking of the other 7-ish score story I had, but I actually enjoyed that a lot better. The Last Church, I gave it a 7.5, but I did like that better than this one, so I have to mark it down just a tad.
Fair. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, I guess that's what we have to say for the Plague Star. So go read it. It's a enjoyable romp, and And if you guys like our discussion, please like and subscribe to the channel, and have a great day, and see you all soon.